All right, there always seems to be a bombshell coaching move in the NFL every offseason, and it looks like this year's has just dropped. In shocking news, Seattle Seahawks head coach Pete Carroll has been fired as the head coach of the team. He will stay with the organization in an advisory role, but this is an absolute bombshell, ladies and gentlemen. I don't think anybody saw this one coming. After 14 seasons in Seattle, by far the most successful coach in team history, brought them their only Super Bowl, has made the playoffs 10 out of 14 seasons there, ultimately coming to an end, and it's a real blindside. I have sources inside the building. I've talked to people. They are completely blindsided by this. It looks like the entire coaching staff might be on their way out. They're all packing up their stuff. This is crazy. They are shell-shocked, and I think most of us are shell-shocked. Nobody really saw this coming. There wasn't really an inkling like this could be on the table, and Pete himself a couple of days ago talking on the radio said, I expect to be the head coach in 2024. I'm excited. I want to get to these guys. I'm not feeling tired, exhausted, any of this stuff. I don't have any inkling of not wanting to coach. Now, Pete was the fourth longest tenured coach in the NFL behind Belichick, Tomlin, and Harbaugh, but he's the oldest head coach in the NFL. He's 72 years old, but you wouldn't have guessed that if you didn't know that. Pete is a lively guy running up and down the sidelines, chomping on his gum. He's a ball of energy, so you wouldn't really know he's the oldest guy in the league, but this is totally crazy. He thought he just needed to do a better job coaching these guys, help develop this. He said he just wants to see this group through. And look, there was some turmoil with this team with the Russell Wilson. You make the massive trade for him, but then you take Geno Smith, you make the playoffs last year. You're very competitive this year. Now, they had a really good start. They were like 5-2, I think, to start the season. They were technically in first place in the NFC West. Things kind of fell down the stretch, but guess what? They had a super tough down the stretch schedule. I mean, San Francisco twice. They played Baltimore. They played Dallas. They played like everybody that was good. Played the best teams in the NFL. Sometimes that happens. I think ultimately it did hurt. They finished 9-8, just missing the playoffs, losing that home game the second to last week of the season against the Steelers, a Steelers team that is okay, but really hasn't been that great. You lose that game at home, and you miss the playoffs. Otherwise, they'd be getting ready for Dallas this week in a rematch with their former head defensive coordinator, Dan Quinn, who has now been named as a favorite to take over this job. Dan Quinn came in with Pete as an assistant in 2010, took over the defense, the Legion of Boom, a lead architect of that. He goes to Atlanta to be a head coach, gets Atlanta to the Super Bowl. We know all about that. Now he's revived this Dallas defense, who's one of the worst in the leagues, and that's now a Super Bowl favorite. With that unit, he is now the favorite to take over. Now, there's lots of guys, but this is kind of a shocking move. Owner Jody Allen took over the team in 2018 from her brother. Paul Allen passed away, and it's kind of been a weird ownership. There was word like she's not really involved with the team. She doesn't really want the team. It's her brother's team. She doesn't necessarily know what to do with it, but now she makes this massive move. Who knows who talked to? She said after meeting with some people, talking some things over, now she's totally in control. There's a massive power vacuum. Pete's been the GM or the executive vice president or president of the team since he's joined as well as the head coach. So now it's GM John Schneider. He's in charge. He's signed with the team through 2027. So it looks like he's ultimately the head guy now, a total restructure of the power. And this is kind of crazy. Pete just signed an extension in 2020, a 5-year deal, and he's done a good job. He's made 3 playoffs in that stretch. I don't know, man. It's kind of weird how this thing all shook out. I know everyone was blindsided by this. I think there were a little reports. Maybe we should have known something was up. They said that they had the end of the season coaches meeting scheduled for today. That got pushed back to tomorrow. And then they had called an all hands on deck meeting this afternoon in Seattle. And then the news broke from the owner. I can't believe that this was happening. And this is the risk you take when you move into the NFL and you go and take the jump into the unknown. Pete Carroll is one of the most stable, successful coaches this league has ever seen. Is it getting a little stale? Quite possibly, but you're still winning. This is not a super talented football team. Geno Smith is not a great quarterback. He's not. He's just okay. There's good talent around this team. It's a decent roster. Now, they've really hit on some draft picks in the last few years. The defense kind of regressed a little bit this last year, and that's Pete's side of the ball. I mean, I don't know, man. It's kind of crazy to think about what you're doing here. This is a huge risk, Seattle. And sometimes it doesn't pay off. Like, Seattle was not a great franchise before this. Like, throughout their history, they were pretty mediocre, pretty bad. They had a good stint in the early 2000s, and then Pete rode off that wave, brought them back. It's a really risky unknown. You could easily turn into an organization like the Bears, who's firing a coach every 3 years, every 2 years, it feels like, or the Browns, who spent decades in disaster mode. You just never know with this team. Now, there are some believers that this is a well-run organization. John Schneider's been a good GM in this league for a long time, but new ownership, really, I mean, kind of, you don't really know what their moves are going to be, what kind of risk they're going to take. But this is a very enticing head coaching job, I think. It's got a decent roster. You're going to need a quarterback if you're going to Seattle. But the rest of the roster, I've talked about all year on my power rankings. This is a solid team. They regressed a bit on defense. They got to work that out. But I think the foundation is there. I think the talent foundation is there. Keep drafting good. Keep signing guys. Get things figured out. And get yourselves a real quarterback. I mean, this offense, man, we got some real potential for this to be a high-flying offense, but Pete doesn't like to play that way. I can't imagine Dan Quinn's going to bring any sort of juggernaut offense with him coming in as a defensive coordinator, because that's just not what defensive coordinators do, man. They love ground and pound and play defense, kind of a dying breed in this league, but it's a huge risk. It's an unknown territory for the Seahawks. 14 years, done, still with the organization, probably just to keep paying him that contract and getting his input, but a bombshell out of Seattle. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Are you surprised by this move? Do you think this is the right decision? Was it a good move to get rid of Pete? Who do you think is going to fill in? Who's going to take over that job? I talked a lot about Dan Quinn. There's some other names out there, obviously, lots of head coaching jobs, and this is probably towards the top of that list now in the NFL. Let me know what you guys think. Again, if you haven't already, hit that thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. We got new sports content every single day. If you want to support the channel more, click that join button, sign up for a channel membership. You get access to exclusive videos, early access to videos, badges, emojis, things to use in the chat throughout the live streams. Help support me, allows me to keep making this great content for you guys every single day. Again, like, subscribe, and share, and I'll see y'all tomorrow.